The SpongeBob SquarePants movie's always been one of my favorite movies of all time, ever since I first saw it when I was a kid. My parents actually tell me that I saw it in 2004 in the theaters, but I kind of have a hard time believing that because I was 3, but that could just be memory loss because, you know, I was 3. Regardless, I rewatched my DVD of this movie countless times as a kid. It was always a great comfort film to just put on whenever I wanted to see my favorite yellow rectangle. Later in life, however, I started to delve into more like classic media, you know, stuff that was popular in like the 80s and the 90s and other things that internet reviewers at the time said were better than the things that were coming out at the time. Because I was poisoned by fucking angry video game nerd and shit. For some reason, I was kind of like a hipster kid. Like in 2010, I asked my parents for a Nintendo Entertainment System. I was 9. Later on in life, however, I started delving into much more like classic media. Sometime during this classic media binge, I found another one of my favorite movies, Back to the Future. There's such a believable energy to this movie that makes you truly believe every time you watch it that Marty might not actually do it this time. He's gonna fuck it up and die. Or more accurately, never exist in the first place. Recently, I was thinking about both of these movies again, as they always sort of re-enter and re-enter my film rotation that I just watch regularly, and thought about it, and I was thinking, aren't these movies kind of similar when you break them down? Both have a plucky young protagonist, both have a weird friend that both motivates them and directly helps them get to the end. Both have a side villain with a cool sounding name that just beating won't solve the main problem, but they kind of have to do. And both have main threats that are kind of vague and hard to explain if you haven't really seen the movies before. So I thought, how far does this go? How many parallels of these two movies can I sneak out of each other before I start sweating too much in this room because I turned off all the fans to record the fucking audio? There's only one way to find out, so I present to you Back to the Future versus the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. The primary. The main characters in these films are essentially exact polar opposites in terms of attitude, yet somehow they both accomplish the same goal in the story. SpongeBob SquarePants is a fucking dork. A lovable dork for sure, but a complete and total goofball, acting like a knucklehead McSpazatron right till the end. Marty McFly, on the other hand, is the epitome of 80s cool. He wears a sweet jacket, plays sick guitar solos at the loudest volume possible. As we all know, hearing protection is for pussies. Has a cool girlfriend, and a friend that makes tons of awesome inventions. Who he probably met as his part-time job at Home Depot or something, I don't fucking know. Despite that, however, they're both guys who need to prove their worth and go on a quest far too advanced for what they can accomplish. At least in their minds. They act like they have everything figured out at the start of the movie, but then, uh-oh, you're in the hero's journey archetype. These motherfuckers are about to learn shit about themselves and change the people around them. I think the most surprising parallel going back through these movies is that SpongeBob is actually a lot more like Marty's dad, George McFly. George McFly is, of course, a doofus. He's a freaking nerd. I'm sure in an alternate timeline, Marty would have actually been exactly like SpongeBob instead of just filling the same character role. But we're stuck with what we have, so George is actually a lot closer to SpongeBob, even though George is, well, he's kind of the main character. Sidekick. The sidekicks in these movies are also what I would consider polar opposites, although oddly not as strong of a difference as you would think. See, Doc Brown is a genuine super genius, while Patrick is, on the surface, just a stupid, dumb, stupid idiot that's stupid and dumb. But, if you ask me, I always considered Patrick to be a bit more of an idiot savant. See, Patrick has been shown, at least in the series, not the movie, to be genuinely skilled at like some very specific things. He makes all the furniture in his house out of fucking sand. He always is really good at giving motivational speeches to SpongeBob whenever he feels down. And, of course, music production. I do think Patrick would appreciate Doc Brown's Rube Goldberg machine at the start of Back to the Future, though. He would get hypnotized by that shit instantly, I swear. And on that note, you know, maybe Doc Brown is just not as smart as everyone makes him out to be. I mean, let's be real here. There is no practical application for a machine as complicated as this. Like, can he just do all these things himself? Is he stupid? Like Patrick. He's stupid. And after all, what kind of smart person would steal plutonium from terrorists all by yourself? You're just asking for trouble at that point. Don't do that. That's stupid. Like Patrick. Don't do that. They have like guns and stuff and they shoot them. And what do you have? Cool looking car? Yup. Sounds like this nuclear physicist was a dumbass this whole time. Fucking stupid. Side villain. One thing that's really interesting about both these movies is that they both have a side villain that they have to beat, but that doesn't really mean that they win when they do beat them, you know? Like, just because SpongeBob and Patrick defeated Dennis twice doesn't mean that they got the crown, saved the town, and Mr. Krabs. Just because Marty's dad, George McFly, manages to get over his fear of Biff Tannen and punches him in the face doesn't mean that he automatically has the courage to kiss the girl that's supposed to birth his son. That doesn't add up, man. They're both meatheads with a lot of power that get overcome by a guy who, at the start of the movie, are practically fucking babies. Sure, SpongeBob and Patrick never technically defeat Dennis themselves, instead always seeming to run into the solution by pure coincidence. But like, they still did it. If God has decided that SpongeBob and Patrick are gonna be the victors of that situation, and history's always written by the victors, I don't know. Kinda lines up. Main threat. This one's kind of funny because Back to the Future's main threat is more of a vague concept than anything. Marty accidentally traveled through time and saved his dad from getting hit by his future wife, thus causing them to meet and fall in love. The SpongeBob movie's main threat is a little bit more straightforward. You see, Plankton wants to take over Bikini Bottom, so he uses King Neptune's narcissism and lack of basic problem-solving skills to make him believe Mr. Krabs stole his crown, thus causing him to freeze Krabs, allowing Plankton to steal the Krabby Patty formula, luring customers into his shop, as it's the only one serving the most popular fast food item in the city, and giving them bucket helmets that brainwash them into slaves who do Plankton's bidding. Okay, when I put it like that, it seems a little complicated, but I don't know, it feels like it makes more sense. But there's still a notable line here. Both George McFly and SpongeBob essentially prove to everyone that they're actually super cool and awesome by overcoming a huge goal. George punches Biff to save Lorraine and prove he has the courage to stand up against assholes, and SpongeBob brings the crown back from the surface world in order to prove everyone that he can stand up against assholes. The car. I nearly forgot about this one too, but they both have a car. The paddy wagon is more of like a nondescript vehicle than a straight up car compared to the DeLorean, but like, it's still a car. No matter how many times SpongeBob says you don't need a license to drive a sandwich, he still calls it a car. Ironically, despite the DeLorean being, without a doubt, the most iconic part of Back to the Future, you don't really see it that much in the movie. You see it in the intro, a couple of times throughout, and at the end. After all, the main plot of the movie is that it's fucking broken, so it wouldn't really make sense if you saw the DeLorean all the way throughout the movie. Although it would be extremely funny if there was just a random scene in the middle of Back to the Future where he just fucking takes the broken ass DeLorean, tries to give it up to 88 miles per hour, and he just fucking crashes into like a wall or something. He just dies. The movie ends, and that's it. Oh my god, you know, now that I say it out loud, I think that would be really fucking infuriating to watch. I'm glad they didn't put that in the movie now. The paddy wagon, as you know, similarly gets taken away from our heroes in their journey, although the sandwich gives us the false sense of hope that SpongeBob and Patrick may actually get it back and use it more than just a little bit throughout the movie. Their heist to get back the paddy wagon is probably my favorite scene in the movie though, so I think that makes up for it personally. Whatever, the settings. Settings between these two films start out pretty similar. Both are set in suburban towns, and you could probably say that SpongeBob is set in the 1980s because you don't truly see any high-tech stuff in use that isn't already implied to be some sort of science fiction device. That's it. Not all these sections have to be super long. One unique thing about both these films is that they both have multiple games based off of them. Back to the Future, of course, has the infamous NES game that most retro game reviewers have already shat on in great detail because it's total nonsense. But did you know that in 1985, 4 years before the NES version, there was a game made for the personal computers of the time. The Commodore 64, the Amstrad CPC, and the ZX Spectrum. Jesus fucking Christ. But, not to be outdone, Japan also had a game made for their popular computer of the day, the MSX. I actually played a bit of this one myself, and this one's actually normal, so thank God. At least none of these are the MSX2 version of Back to the Future, which is text adventure and entirely in Japanese. So can't even really comment on that one. The Spongebob movie, of course, had the 3D platformer everyone knows. Everyone loves that game. But there was also the 2D platformer made for the Game Boy Advance, the PC version that was a point-and-click adventure game, and hang on a second. Back to the Future also had a point-and-click adventure game. You see, in 2010, Back to the Future had a series of point-and-click adventure games made by Telltale. That's right. Once people figured out that in order to make a game based on Back to the Future, people had to understand what was going on, Telltale went and made a game that, I've never played before. Let's just check it real quick. Back to the Future, the game. As I mentioned, this game was made decades after the original trilogy of movies, taking place after Part 3. We follow Marty on a quest to save Doc from getting killed by the forces of evil, this time in illustrious 1930. I read some reviews of this game ahead of time as sort of a primer, and some of them mentioned the hint system being like a little intrusive. Personally, I don't care if a game railroads me into making a decision, as long as I get the chance to find my way to that decision. I get lost very easily in video games, so to me, hint systems and waypoints are a way of life. Then, not even 15 minutes into the game, it's telling me the exact thing I'm supposed to do, so I go to the options to turn off the pop-up text, because I figured, well, the text did pop up, so maybe that's what I'm supposed to be turning off. Then I realized, oh, that turns off the hover text too, and I really do need that, so I went ahead and turned pop-up text back on, and then the thing that annoyed me never seemed to happen again, so maybe it was just a one-time thing in the first episode, I don't know. Anyway, by the time I'd already gone through that embarrassing-ass situation, I'd already forgotten what it said in the first place, so I stumbled around for a little while until I realized, hey, I need a hint because I forgot what I was doing. So I went to the actual hint system, and then I realized that I just missed one single dialogue option that you're supposed to use on George McFly. So now you know my shame. This always happens to me in these sort of puzzle-like games, because for some reason my mind just always comes up on a roadblock when it is faced with more than an extremely basic puzzle. It's what I like to call AAA gamer syndrome, and it always makes me feel like a fucking idiot, because when you see the solution to an extremely basic puzzle just straight up given to you, it makes you feel so stupid, because then you see the solution and it's like, oh, doy. Anyway, I finished up to chapter 1 for this video, and I gotta say, I'm not entirely impressed. I don't think this game is some sort of travesty or abomination to the Back to the Future franchise, but it does just kind of feel like another Telltale game, which was sort of a problem they were having at the time. But on that note, it also just feels like another Back to the Future sequel. Like, sure, at the time it was probably great to finally see these classic characters in a new settings with some more relatives. But it stops hitting now when they're all just kind of like the same character. The new Tannen in this game, Kid Tannen, feels like just any other Tannen from Back to the Future. Like, stupid, he's tough, and he gets covered in poo. Arthur McFly, Marty's grandfather, feels like a copy of wimpy George McFly. Edna Strickland feels a little bit more original as a character, just because the Stricklands were never really a major part of the original Back to the Future movies. And the story itself is like, it's pretty interesting. It's not bad, and it's quite well written too. A lot of good fluff dialogue that the average person could easily skip over. I don't think it's completely out of the question that I come back to this game someday, but I'm just gonna stop playing it for now and start playing the SpongeBob PC game. The SpongeBob SquarePants movie game, PC. The Spongebob movie game on PC is, on the surface, just another traditional licensed kids game for PC, but it actually takes a lot of insane creative liberties on new locations and set pieces and stuff like that. It is the only Spongebob point and click where you can actually play as different characters. That's right, not only is this the only video game ever that lets you play as Mindy, but it's the only video game on PC called the Spongebob Squarepants movie game that lets you play as Sheldon. Pretty much every scene of the movie has been greatly expanded into its own full level, or they just completely make up some random bullshit for SpongeBob and Patrick to do in order to increase the length of the game. At a certain point in the game, SpongeBob and Patrick just stop dead in their tracks to convince a chiropractor fish to let invertebrates into his shop. I don't know if you remember the SpongeBob movie as well as I do, because I was recently rewatched it, but that doesn't happen in the movie. It makes no fucking sense. But I will admit, it is pretty goddamn funny. In another section of the game, SpongeBob goes into this creepy cave that has something called the Pool of Perception that lets him see into the future, and it's really... Okay, just watch this.
Okay, one last time. Hey, Squidward?
What?
Out of all the graves in the world, what do you think the odds were of us ending up right next to each other forever and ever and ever?
SpongeBob, you are truly a loser.
Hey, Squidward,
What do you want, SpongeBob?
can you scoot over a bit?
No.
Hey, Squidward,
What now?
go towards the light. Whoa, I think that was a little too much information.
What the fuck? Wait a minute. I just realized this SpongeBob game has time travel in it. Just like Back to the Future. You thought I was going off on a tangent because every YouTube video I've ever seen of SpongeBob games leaves out this video game because they don't care enough to play it, even though this game is actually really good. I wasn't doing that. But yeah, definitely give this game a try if you're into this sort of point and click type games. It's really weird and absurd, but it's a SpongeBob game that sort of comes with the territory. Thanks for watching my first video of this sort of thing. If you liked it, be sure to clean the grime off of your windows, because if the sun's out, then it can sort of hit you, and then you can't really see, and it's hard to drive and that sort of thing, at least during the day. During the night, it's not so bad, but, seriously though, this is my first time doing this sort of thing, and I'm not even sure what this is exactly. I just wanted to do an actual video, and I had a crazy idea. So, if you liked it, be sure to leave a comment. So if you have something to say it. Unless it's really sad, or mad, or bad, because then you're gonna make me sad, or mad, or make me turn bad, and then I'm gonna have to put you on my list. Bye.